my label to my website.
Hello, Garland Nixon here with Jose Vega. He's running for Congress in New York, and I think people have just about had enough of this crap. And I think that Jose is going to have some success. Let's talk. So Jose's going to be running. He's running for Congress in New York City. He's running as against a guy that I think is like everything that's wrong with politics right now. A guy named Richie Torres. Never found a war he doesn't support. Of course, he's an LGBTQ guy, so they stuck him in there for what I call the rainbow imperialism. That's what I call it. They find a black person, a gay person, you know what I mean? Some person that has some particular facet of them that they can pretend that they're looking out for some group that's being, treated, unfairly. And they can use that to make that person a human shield so they can go around the world and do their terrible, terrible things. Well, Jose Vega has been an activist. You might have seen him on any number of times. A lot of viral videos where some member of Congress is, having a town hall or something. And Jose's the guy that says, you're trying to start a war. You're trying to start a nuclear war. Stop it now. So let's start here, Jose, letting people know where you are, where you're running. Let's do the housework first of the details of your what's going on with your
Yeah, sure. So the South Bronx, which is my district, what they call New York 15, that's the official district line here, is the poorest congressional district in the country. The way they measure that is they measure how many people are living underneath the poverty line of the state. So here the poverty line is $34,000 dollars a year in income, right? So if you're making below that, you're considered below the poverty line. The median income in this district is something like $25,000 or $26,000 a year, right?
And in New York City, I live in Maryland. And I live in Maryland. And Maryland's a fairly expensive state. And I'm going to tell you right now, 24,000, you can't live in your car for that in Maryland. I cannot imagine what $24,000 a year, $2,000 a month can do for you in any part of New York City.
That's right. Where the median income for like a one bedroom, or the median rent, excuse me, for a one bedroom apartment is, I think, $1,800 now a month, right? Just for a single bedroom. So, it's horrible what is happening here in the South Bronx. It's been like this for the last 50, 60 years or so. Yesterday I had visited the mural of Amadou Diallo. It was 25 years since the shooting happened. For people who don't know, he was shot 41 times just for being outside of his apartment building, reaching for his wallet. 41 shots. And so, that's what one of the things the Bronx is notorious for. The other thing that's notorious for is Kalief Browder. Kalief Browder, for those who may not remember, was a young man who was jailed for a crime he did not commit. It took 3 years for him to be released. The entire time he was innocent. And then when he got out a year later, he killed himself because he was just so beaten down and broken down by the system. So that's my district. This is where I was born, and this is where I grew up in my formative years. This is the Bronx. And I'm running against Richie Torres because Richie Torres likes to ignore the fact that the infrastructure is collapsing. In December, we had a building here in the Bronx that literally just fell. It just fell apart, right? Thankfully, nobody died, but it just fell apart. Meanwhile, he's ignoring that so he can then go and destroy buildings in Gaza and commit, ethnic cleansing and genocide that's actually happening in Gaza. So that's where I'm running. That's who I'm running against. And we can definitely get way more into that, but that's just a broad overview.
And talk a little bit about the Richie Torres. I know he's AIPAC funded. I know he's voting in favor of wars, and you have confronted him. Talk a bit about Richie Torres. What do we need to know about him?
Richie Torres is a airhead, just to put it politely. I mean, him and a lot of these other people are not real. Their opinions are not theirs. It is a script that is handed to them. IPAC is also, by the way, on top of money, they give their candidates like booklets, they give them like talking points like, here, if somebody starts saying that the 67 war was unjustified, here's your talking points on how to counter that, right? Like, and this is all crafted up by the IDF. And so Richie Torres was elected here in the Bronx, I believe in 2018 or 2020, excuse me, 2020, yeah, because the congressman at the time, Jose Serrano, was out the door already. So it was like a free for all, like whoever can get the most votes from the Democratic Party. That's usually how these things happen, right? It wasn't some AOC, he unseated some big guy. No, it was just the seats open and he happened to win the race. That's just, there was nothing behind that at all. And, Richie Torres is deeply unpopular here in the South Bronx, but what they've done with the district, they've gerrymandered the district. See, so for people who don't know the Bronx, there's the South Bronx, and then there's the Riverdale. Riverdale is a much more wealthier area. That's where a lot of the Jewish population is, and that's where a lot of the people who are pro-Israel are. So in this last district remapping, which only happened a couple of years ago, they gave Richie Torres much more of Riverdale and much less of the South Bronx. They actually split the South Bronx in half, right? So that he could get less support of the people of the South Bronx and get more support where the money comes from. So, and that's IPAC money. I don't want people to think I'm saying this is some Jewish conspiracy. Not at all. Just saying that people.
Riverdale, huh?
Yes.
A little story about Riverdale. Little do you know, you might know, because I had a friend of mine that actually owned the Archie comics. That's where the Riverdale, which was the town in the Archies, the Archie comics, Riverdale, the owner, Michael Cyberclight or whatever, the original owners of Archie would just drive by there and see the sign that said Riverdale. Well, they named the Riverdale and Archie after that Riverdale. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
But at any rate, yeah, interesting story. At any rate, let's talk about what do you know about his record, about the kind of things he supports and what he supported, and then we'll get to you.
Sure. Well, for one, he is on the board of the Anti-China Committee, right? Or I think the official name of it is something like the Committee on Oversight of China and their actions in the foreign world or so. And this guy's a big proponent of, there's a Uyghur genocide happening. The Chinese are imperialist, and this is also a proof of the uniparty existence because. It's him, and then it's the Republican Mike Lawler, who are the heads of these committees, and they work in tandem together, right? When it comes to going against China, when it comes to going against Russia. He was an unequivocal big supporter of, the Ukrainian neo-Nazis, of the Banderistas, send all the money to Ukraine. And so when I challenged him on the Nord Stream pipeline, I said, listen, Seymour Hersh just came out with this, a report that the United States was involved in the Nord Stream bombing. His response was, Nord Stream is a pipeline that delivers oil, and it's gas. It's not oil, it's gas. It's two different things. So he already disqualified himself. He said, and that's Germany and Russia, so we have no jurisdiction over that to investigate whatever happened there. So, and that's when we had an infamous back and forth there. But wow. Yeah, so he's a pro-war neocon in LGBT clothing.
Well, that kind of reminds me, I forgot one of the other squad guys, and someone asked him about Donbass in eastern Ukraine. Now, this was like a year and a half after the conflict, after the special military operation, the conflict kicked up in 2022. And they asked Jamal Bowman, what about Donbass in eastern Ukraine and blah, blah, blah. He says, I don't really know about that. I have to figure. Now, this is, and now he supported war and all that. And what we see with the type of people that we have in Congress. Now, they're supposed to be young, people of color, LGBTQ. They use all this crap, right? But the truth is, they don't need to know. They're paid not to know. You know what I mean? It's like they're going to be taken care of because when you ask the question, they don't need to know. They're told how to vote. They're not told, support this. Okay, support that. And if you come to them and say, what do you know about it? If they were honest, they'd say, it's not my job to know about these things. It's my job to do what the hell I'm told. And that's what Richie Torres is doing. And that's what he's going to stop doing soon. When is the primary vote anyway?
Oh no primary for me. I mean, it's in June, but I'm independent. I ain't primarying him.
Okay.
I'm running.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Straight,
so let's talk about it. You have announced on what, Saturday? You're not Saturday.
Saturday, yes.
Well, it hadn't been long. Talk about what happened. Do people seem open and welcome to getting a an anti-war, an empire voice?
I was very surprised, honestly, when I announced my candidacy first I did it unofficially on X or Twitter, telling people, hey, I'm going to make a major announcement on Jimmy Dore show in a few minutes. And people kind of pieced it together at that point. And then when I was on the Jimmy Dore show, I think something like 7,000 people were watching and more because there was also Rumble. So I don't know how many more, but it was a lot of people watching. And I was just blown away. I mean, we raised $1,000 on my appearance on Jimmy Dore show, and then another 1,000 yesterday. And people who I didn't know knew I existed or supported me were posting my website online saying, "Hey, we need to support this guy in his run against Richie Torres." And
what's your website? I'm gonna get me your website. I'm gonna bring it up right now. What's your website?
Votevega.nyc.
VOTEVEGA.NYC.
Yeah, and I was just like completely blown away by the fact that people were sharing my website. And this website, I mean, we put it together in just a couple of weeks. The people who made it, I mean, are great. But as you can see, like we starting with like nothing. I mean, that picture was just taken on a cell phone, and like those are my clothes. Those are my winter clothes, That's me. And sorry, hold on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. You're good.
Okay, no problem. My video, here we go. Yeah. So, that's just me, right? And like, that's just who I am. And, I was just blown away at the fact that people wanted to support me and also we're okay with the fact that I'm not like a cookie cutter guy who's wearing a suit, who says, vote for me because I said this on the Jimmy Dore show. I said, listen, folks, I don't want to make any promises to you. I cannot guarantee you a win. I can't guarantee you a significant vote. I know you might think differently, Garland, but I met with a former state senator, state assemblyman. I can't remember what it was, and I met with him yesterday. He said to me, you should have run as a Democrat against Richie Torres. And I said, do you really think so? Do you honestly believe the elections are honest? And he said, well, I was there when they took the voting machines in New York City and then they put them in the Board of Elections building. They locked the doors and then they started switching all the votes. And he said he saw that with his eyes. This is a former state official, okay, in a pretty high up position. And I said, you need to come out publicly with this. And he just kept telling me horror story, but he kept ignoring my request to come out publicly because he was just scared to admit it. And that's why I can't promise people a vote, because if they want Richie Torres in there, he's going to stay in there unless people want to prove me wrong. And what that requires is taking up this issue of what they call electric frog. I know we're on YouTube, so we'll stay with terms that won't get us, on the but the electric frog, is real. And if people are willing to take up that issue, if people are willing to expose that issue in the next few months, then maybe there's a chance. Maybe. Now, that's just what I believe. But just to kind of circle back and wrap this all up, people have been supporting me, and it has been honestly amazing. And I would never have expected the amount of enthusiasm that people have, and it's just been blowing me away.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this. Have you heard from any press whatsoever, or alternative media? What kind of press contacts have you had?
Yeah, excuse me. So I'm waiting to hear back from a couple of bigger shows. You know, I'm hoping Kim Iverson's producer gets back to me. He said he was going to talk to her. I mean, well, I probably shouldn't be giving away all the secret sauce, but um, you know, we were waiting to make an official invitation to Tucker Carlson because he has played my interventions multiple times on his on Fox News. And actually, I can tell you this: the last week that he got kicked, that he was still on Fox News, the week he got kicked off, I was reached out by his producer asking me if I could come into the studio the next week. And then at the end of that week was when he got booted out of Fox News.
It was you. You're the one that they said we can put up with a lot of things, man. You can interview Putin, but doggone it if you're going to have that Jose Vega on our show.
Yeah, I think the timing just was awkward at that point. But you know, I am going to make a formal, you know, invitation and see where that goes. I mean, other than that, I was also surprised at the fact that there were some people who've had me on their shows before who are right wing, who are complete Israel fanatics, reach out to me and say, "Hey, you know what? I hope you can win."
Wow.
And it's like, even though I think you're wrong on Gaza and Israel, let's see you do something. Let's see you put up a fight. And some of them are even willing to bring me back on, despite my my stance that there's a genocide happening in Gaza. They don't see it that way. They don't even want me to try and convince. They want to. But anyway, you know, yeah, I yeah, that's kind of been the response from the end. Of course, you know, I was on Due Dissidents, I was on Jimmy Dore. I have, you know, Craig Pasta. I think I'm going to be on his show tomorrow night, and I'm going to be on some local New York podcasts as well. The next step here is to get on Spanish podcasts, you know, because I can speak Spanish, and you know, a lot of my voter base is Hispanic. A lot of them, you know, may not speak any English for all I know, and so, you know, it's going to be important for me to start getting on Spanish radio. It's going to be important for me to start getting on Spanish podcasts. I mean, you think Jimmy Dore gets views, or Joe Rogan, man? These Spanish podcasters get like millions of people.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because like half the world speaks Spanish, you know.
Right.
So, you know, yeah. So that's kind of like, that's kind of been my strategy, is to just stick to dissident media, stick to the alternative media, you know, where people really want to talk about these things and support an independent candidate. So
let's start here then. Let's run down your positions. All right. Let's start here. I'm going to throw the word out for you.
okay.
Russia, Ukraine, your position on that conflict.
That whole thing was provoked by NATO since 2014. And honestly, you could go back even further than 2014, because there was a pledge that NATO would not expand eastward, and they continued to expand eastward. And finally, the dam broke in 2014 with the Maidan coup. And then there was the shelling happening in Donbass. So, you know, was Putin justified in launching the invasion? I'm still iffy on that, but I completely understand why he did it. And the United States and NATO are the perpetrators, and they were the bullies in that conflict, not Russia.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the existence of extreme nationalists? They use all kinds of terms, but of the extremists, you know, the issues with the discussion of those who are of a nature to goose step and scream Sieg Heil a lot in Ukraine. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Victoria Nuland was the one giving them all the money, right? And that's she said it out loud. You know, we get what, $5 billion to achieve our goals. That's an exact quote from Victoria Nuland, right? And congressmen, including Hakeem Jeffries and Max Rose and other congressmen, all signed a letter warning about those who like to Sieg Heil in the Ukraine, saying, hey, we got some problem with the people who like to wear the armbands on their arms. What's going on? You know, so the Congress was warning about this in 2014, 2016, 2018, but suddenly it's not a problem when we need them, right? When we need to support the Mujahideen, then it's okay. Then there are freedom fighters. But when they, start taking the things that we give them and using it against us, then it's, whoa, they're terrorists. So
yeah, the thing I find interesting about ISIS is we're here to fight ISIS, but for some reason they always attack like Iran and all our adversaries and never attack us. And interestingly enough, the other day when the US like bombed Iraq and Syria, ISIS almost in coordination attacked some of our enemies at the same time. Kind of almost like we're working together at times, I always wonder where they get all of those money and weapons, and they always attack our enemies. At any rate, okay, so let's jump to China. Your thoughts on China?
Oh, I was just in China. I was in China in September. One of the greatest times I had. I was in Beijing for 5 days, and then I was in Sichuan or Chengdu for another 5 days. I mean, full disclaimer. I was there as a part of a delegation trip. I was invited by the All China Youth Federation. I guess they still consider me youth. And the Schiller Institute was invited to send out a youth delegation. So I was there along with 14 other young people, and we got to tour around China. We got to go to, we spoke at Tsinghua University and Peking University. We gave lectures to like some of the biggest names in Chinese politics and Chinese business on the Belt and Road Initiative. We were there to explain our policy position. We were to explain, what is the future look like for U.S.-China relations and how are we actually going to fix it? And so, with China, I think what we need is collaboration. We don't need to be warmongering with them. I think the fact that we keep giving weapons to Taiwan, and Nancy Pelosi goes and visits Taiwan, and then she says, well, and then we say, no, but we still recognize one China. But if something happens to Taiwan, we may or may not respond. The strategic ambiguity, it's idiotic. It's just warmongering. And what it is, it's another domino to fall. They have these dominoes to fall, right? So the Israel-Gaza question was always brewing, right? So if they needed that to fall, it could have fallen at any minute. Same thing with Ukraine and Russia, right? If they needed that to start, if they need to start a war, they have a few places where they can start one, right? So Taiwan, China is another place where they can start a war if NATO and the US and Great Britain want to start one. That's my position on China is we should collaborate and work with them, not start a war with them.
I'm with you. I'm interesting. You're running as an independent. I'm an independent too. And if I was, whatever run, it would be as an independent. And it's interesting to see this. You've got, of course, the Democrats, right? Oh, Russia's evil. Russia's terrible. Russia's horrible. Oh, it's the worst of everything in the world, right? And then you get these conservatives or libertarians who say, well, that's preposterous. That's ridiculous. How can you let Joe Biden and John Bolton and all of these lunatic neocons drag you into conflict with Russia when it's all lies? But now China, the very same people, Biden, Newland, Blinken, Sullivan, John Bolton, the very same people that they will admit are absolute warmongering liars about Russia. For some reason, they're right about China. And I just think to myself, I'm looking at two brainwashed cults here. And you know what I mean? They hand this brainwashed cult this enemy. They hand that brainwashed cult that enemy. And for those who are like stuck in the middle, hey, why not both of them, Russia and China? Either way, they win. I find that interesting. Okay. So we've covered Russia and China. Your thoughts about I'm going to throw one thing after another at you, right? The tough ones, man. But okay, let's go to Gaza, Middle East. Your thoughts? Okay, Gaza. Your thoughts on Israel-Gaza, that conflict?
Well, maybe I'm a little more extreme than my cohorts because this idea of what it means to have a right to exist, I don't know if I buy it. I read recently a history on Israel and FDR, and FDR was warning that if you put Israel where it is today, you were only going to have conflict and angry Arabs. And that's what happened. FDR was right. And the problem was that FDR died. If FDR had not died, I honestly think, the future of America would not be what it is today if he had just lived one more year. But, excuse me. But, there is an Israel now. There are people who've been born there now. And as to whether or not there should continue to be an Israel after this. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the person who can make that. I know there are people who are much better at negotiating this, like Marwan Bagudi, who is in jail right now, who needs to be free. That guy speaks Hebrew and is from Palestine. That guy should be involved in negotiations. My immediate solution to the Gaza question is ceasefire right now. And then what you do is you bring in other countries. You put Russia in there, you put China in there, and you say, okay, what do we need? We need immediate aid. We need immediate food. We need immediate water. We need to immediately rebuild everything that was just destroyed and more, and completely redevelop Palestine and recognize there being a Palestinian state. There needs to be a recognition that Palestine is its own sovereign country, and you let them stay sovereign, right? They say, Israel likes to claim that Gaza and the West Bank are sovereign. That's not true. Israel controls who can come in and out of that border. Israel controls who gets passports and who doesn't get passports. There's no such thing as sovereignty in Gaza and the West Bank. So there needs to be that. And I think, you just need a rapid development program right now for Gaza. And then you let the international courts of justice determine where does Israel fall as a country, and where does Netanyahu and his government fall as well. It's going to be a very messy situation, a very complicated situation. But the other thing is, it's like, how do you actually create peace in that environment right now? Because if you're a 9-year-old and some IDF soldier breaks into your house and blasts your dad's brains all over your face and your body, there's something about me going over there and saying, now you have to live in harmony with the Israelis, that just does not feel right for me to do, and that's just me being honest. I don't know. That kind of mercy would have to come from those people if they would, want to exercise that. So that's where I stand on the Gaza question.
Iran.
I think we're just going into another war. I mean, what Biden is about to start another war with Iran. Why do we keep picking on Iran? It goes back to Zbigniew Brzezinski and the great game and the great chessboard. I mean, this is all just geopolitics manipulation, right? Why don't we leave Iran alone? Why don't we leave Syria alone or Afghanistan alone? Why are we there to begin with? We have no reason to be there, right? This is all about control. So, leave Iran alone. Honestly,
okay. I'm going to hit a bunch of things, but I want people to hear your thoughts on there's something that's this controversial issue, right? And you've seen it amongst the circles of the, ultra liberals, this business about, what is it? And I think it's important to talk about these kinds of things. What is it? The story time, the drag queen story time.
Oh, the drag queen story time.
Let's get into all these little things, because these are things that people think about on a day-to-day basis, talk about, and I want to hear from you, to throw all that stuff at you and just get what you think about it. I'm just going to give you the term drag queen story time. Jose, your thoughts.
Adults can do whatever they want, but you should not indoctrinate children. You should not try to normalize this idea that a man can be dressed as a woman in front of you, or a woman dressed as a man, and read stories to children. I have no problem if an adult wants to do whatever they want, fine, but what that's doing to the mind of a child, it's distorting the idea of what it actually means to be a human being. I don't believe a human being's identity is defined in the vanity. It's not defined in the superficial. It's not defined in what you look like. What makes you human is what you do in life. That is your identity, right? And so to reduce your identity to just what you wear or what is between your legs is the ultimate destruction you can do to a child's mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like this too. And I say like this. if somebody said we're going to have stripper story time, because the drag queen, if you look at it, it's always hypersexualized. It's hypersexualized. They've got on the tight clothes and the sexy clothes. And okay, if somebody said we're going to have women come in, strippers to the kids, and they're going to be in high heels and short skirts and hypersexualized gear, I would say no, because we shouldn't have hypersexualized activity for little children. When you're grown, as you said, hey, adults do what they want. I fight for the rights of adults to be able to live as they please. It's none of my business, and I don't, approve or disapprove of it. It's your life. It ain't mine. But I'm with you. When it comes to hypersexualized content for children, I just think that's the wrong way to go.
That's probably a simple way of putting it. That's a simple way of putting it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to COVID. And I think COVID was an area, we don't need to get into it really deeply, but your thoughts in general, on the government's response to COVID, the COVID policies, the issue of censorship, how the government handled the issue of COVID, your thoughts?
Well, it completely flubbed it. It was, the problem is, because this still is a problem, because you may actually have a disease that will be worse than COVID. It's always possible that you can develop something. The problem is that you don't have good public health in the country to begin with. There's this thing called the Hill-Burton standard that was established during World War II, and I think even before World War II, that for every 1,000 Americans, you need at least there to be 2 hospital beds available. And I think we're at something like 0.5 hospital beds. Now, I bring up that figure to bring up the fact that you have an obesity problem, you have a malnutrition problem, you have a disease problem, people are not healthy, people don't know how to stay healthy. And then they say, well, the United States spends more on healthcare. No, we spend most money on death care. So we can prevent you from dying. That doesn't mean we're helping you live. We're going to prescribe you a shit ton of medicine, no problem, sure, so that you never actually get cured of what you have. And you see this in the industry, whether it's in the psychological industry, right, where somebody who probably doesn't have any kind of mental illness is prescribed like 3 or 4 drugs, right, versus, you know what I'm saying, right? So
I know exactly what you mean.
So when it comes to COVID, right, there was definitely, I think, for one, in the beginning, I understood the justification. Okay, fine. Because I fell into the hysteria in the beginning too. Like, hey, listen, we should wash our hands. We really don't know what this is, right? Maybe the best thing is for us to lock down. As it became revealed, okay, well, maybe COVID itself isn't so severe to the population. If you're, young and healthy, then maybe it's not so severe to you. I fall in line with, I forget the name of this doctor who said, look, the vaccine definitely could be useful to people who are elderly, people who are at risk, right? That makes sense, because I know people who died from COVID who were, who were old, or who had, were immunocompromised, right? Where a vaccine, if it had come out, probably would have helped them and it would have made sense, right? But to put out an experimental vaccine that may or may not have worked, because I remember I got the vaccine, and then that Spider-Man movie came out, Spider-Man No Way Home. And I went to go watch that movie, and I still got sick, and I had gotten the second shot, I think like a week before I went to go see that movie. And then all of us still got sick anyway. And then you had the idiot Rachel Maddow go on the thing saying, well, if you get vaccinated, you stop the transmission, you kill the disease. And it just wasn't true. So I think what COVID did was it destroyed trust that the population could ever trust the government again when it comes to public health matters, when it comes to any kind of public health. And I would like to restore that trust. I mean, I don't know exactly what it would take, because I do fear for the day where, what if you do get a disease that has a 10% mortality rate, and it is, messed up, and people probably should wear masks, and people probably should lock down. Everyone's gonna be like, no, fuck you. This is just another COVID, right?
And just so
that's
everybody knows, since we are on YouTube, and of course, so since we are on YouTube, I have to tell you that the vaccine is both safe and effective, and you should, actually, Jose, in my bedroom, I have an IV drip because a booster is not good enough. So every night I just slap that IV drip into my arm, crank it up. It's kind of like a water hose. And just pump it. I'm trying to actually, it's so safe and effective. I want to replace all of my blood with like the Pfizer juice. So don't forget, it's safe and effective. If you haven't had your booster today, you got to get out there and get it because it's safe and effective. It helps prevent stuff. And oh man, I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. So hook up your IV drip and make sure you get all you could possibly hold. Now let's continue because YouTube knows we're standing up for safe and effective stuff, right?
Right. Make sure
again, a perfect example of what you're talking about. I'm on YouTube, so you got to say, get your third, fourth booster this week to make sure that
someone's
safe.
on their sixth. Someone posted that they were on their sixth.
There you go. Right. Well, I'm telling you, they're not getting it done yet. If you're still in single digits, you got to get moving there. All right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So, let's keep going with the tough ones, man. Immigration. What do you have to say? What's happening at the Texas border? The whole 9 yards.
This one's definitely a big one. So first, I think what's required is a recognition of why you have such a big influx of immigrants coming in. The United States, Great Britain have had this policy since the early 70s or even late 60s of cooing countries, of getting rid of leaders they don't like, of destabilizing countries, making their currencies go, to crap. One of the best examples of this is related to Henry Kissinger's National Security Memorandum 200. And in this memorandum, Henry Kissinger lays out, listen, global population is going to get out of control. What are we going to do to fix it? That's basically what the document lays out. Thomas Ferguson, a State Department official for the Population Affairs Department, which is still a department that exists today. So if you Google United States Population Affairs, you know what they promote? Birth control, contraceptives, where to get your tubes tied, where to get sterilized. That's what they promote.
Where to get where to get your safe and effective booster. I would imagine they're probably pushing that a little bit too.
Right. So like that, if you Google Population Affairs, U.S. State Department, you will find what I'm talking about. So anyway, in 1979, I think, Thomas Ferguson was quoted as saying, if countries aren't going to play ball when it comes to our methods of depopulation, such as sterilization, birth control, then they are going to get what El Salvador is going through right now. And what he was referring to was the Salvadorian Civil War at the time. The Salvadorian Civil War, for people who may not know, was one of the bloodiest conflicts in Central America. My father was drafted to that war at the age of 15 years old. I have his certificate of when he was allowed to finally leave the country, and he's 16 years old. And, it was a population war is what Thomas Ferguson was saying, because it was Salvadorians fighting Salvadorians, and it was started by the United States and Britain. That's what it was started by. So this is the policy that continues to this day. I mean, in Puerto Rico, what did they do in Puerto Rico? The United States went to Puerto Rico and sterilized 1/3 of Puerto Rican women. I'm not kidding you. There's a great documentary on this called La Operación, the operation. And the documentary shows like State Department officials walking around to women's houses of people who've had more than 2 kids and say, what are you doing? Why are you having more than 2 kids? You know what? Come and get this operation. It's reversible, totally reversible. You can have all the sex you want and you will have no babies. And what they did was they were cutting out parts of people's wombs and replacing it with like black thread or something. And it was not reversible. They lied to these women about it being reversible, right? Okay, so
and I would add this: there's a book that I haven't had a chance to listen to, but I downloaded on Audible that I hear is awesome by Nelson Dennis, Denis, and it's called "War Against All Puerto Ricans." And I hear that is really, really good. Most people have no idea the horrible, ways and the things, the way that Puerto Rico's been treated, disrespected. Last time I was in Puerto Rico, I talked to a person there who was of a political nature, and they said, you know, we understand that here we're not going to be pushed down quite as low as the people in South America, but we won't be allowed to get up economically as high as America, that America's got to keep us a step lower because we're Puerto Ricans and we're not considered as good as America. You know, this is the Puerto Rican people. They're telling me they're second class to Americans, if they understand that. And that's American foreign policy there. Or excuse me, it ain't so foreign, is it?
No. And, you know, I go to a boxing gym. I started going again recently, which is run by a Puerto Rican guy named Ponce. And Ponce is a Puerto Rican nationalist, okay? I mean, these guys are like the militant, hardcore, like you do not fuck with them kind of like Puerto Ricans, okay? They are awesome though, but and the reason why the boxing gym is called El Maestro, it's named after a very famous figure in Puerto Rico named Pedro Albizu Campos. And this guy, you know, I don't agree with some of his methods, but he is a figure known today in Puerto Rico as people that they look up to as somebody who, you know, was fighting for Puerto Rican independence. And, you know, but anyway, that's Puerto Rico. But to my larger point, right? So a lot of the Salvadorian diaspora after the Civil War got spread out around the world. You know, you here in New York, Long Island, Elizabeth, New Jersey, there are big Salvadorian populations as a result of the fact that you had large groups of people leaving El Salvador because of the war that was started by the U.S. And so you have this situation in many other countries, not just in Central and South America, because what we're seeing at the border is you have people from African countries coming into Mexico, people from Haiti coming into Mexico because they know they can go in that way. And you have people from even some Asian countries coming in. I mean, you know, this was described by a few people. They were like, wait, why are all these Africans here? These guys don't speak Spanish. So I think a recognition of that. Secondly, you probably need to make like an emergency like housing or shelter or some kind of facility that's humane down at the border where you can put the immigrants that are coming in so we can figure out who the hell is coming in, right? Because you don't know who's coming in. That's a big problem, right? So you might have people who are on the run from the law trying to get in to our country, and then they're up to no good. I mean, you just saw this thing where these illegal immigrants were caught beating up some New York City police, and then, you know, they were let to, you know, go scot-free. I mean, okay, there's a limit, and they should be deported. That's no, you just don't do that. At the same time, there's the aspect I think a lot of people are forgetting is that a lot of these people are human beings. They are told, hey, America is the land of opportunity. My country has been fucked up. I could just stay here and suffer, or I could take my chances in the United States. That is the reality for a lot of people, too. People who just want to come here for a better life, who still, you know, it's funny because it's the non-Americans who believe in the American dream.
Yeah, the Americans, but we learned the hard way that it's bullcrap.
Right. You know, so, and, you know, it's like, hey, somebody's got to believe in it, right? So, you know, I think the immediate thing is figure out who the hell is coming in and then recognize like, okay, well, we're the reason why a lot of people are coming in because we've destabilized a lot of countries around the world. I think El Salvador is a good example of people who are actually going back to their country. You know, I'm Salvadorian, right? And, you know, Bukele just won his re-election. You know, that's my president. I don't recognize Joe Biden. I don't know if I can legally say that as a candidate or not, but like if Bukele could become president of the United States, I would vote for him in a heartbeat because he took El Salvador, which had the highest murder capital in all of Central America, and now it's the safest place in Central America. And Bukele has this great speech where he says, you know, we were never truly independent, you know, until now, when people can finally walk the streets without having to be harassed by MS-13 gang members. Now we are truly independent and we have our own say and what we want. That right there is, you know, Restoring Sovereignty and Human Rights in Nicaragua Act of 2024. What is, I don't know what this is.
Well, let me tell you about that. The reason I put that up is because we're getting ready to have a whole hell of a lot of Nicaraguans. You know, you and I talk about it is the destabilization of the Central American and Latin American countries, Caribbean countries, the destabilization in the same way that they've got all of these immigrants in Europe from the Middle East and Africa because they destabilized these countries, right? Okay. So you've got a couple of representatives. Salazar, I think, is one of them. What's his name? The guy from the short guy from Miami that Trump hates. He called him short. But
Rubio?
Yeah, Rubio. Okay.
Yeah.
The Restoring Sovereignty and Human Rights in Nicaragua Act. Well, let's start here on that. Number one, a country from outside of your country is going to restore sovereignty. You know, there's a contradiction right there. The United States is going to restore sovereignty in Nicaragua. What sense does that make? And human rights, as we're committing a genocide, that anybody's going to believe the United States is committing genocide. So basically what it does is Nicaragua's, you know, plugging along, doing pretty well now. Nobody's leaving for the most part. And you notice not a lot of Nicaraguans, they're kind of happy. What this will do, it will, one of their top exports is beef to the United States. It'll cut it out. It'll cut out their top exports coming to the United States, impoverish and destabilize Nicaragua. And where the hell do you think the Nicaraguans are going to start showing up? You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to destabilize a country with millions of Nicaraguans who are doing, the country is picking up. They're building hospitals, they're building roads. Right. Waking up, they don't have a lot of crime. Nicaragua's doing pretty good. These lunatics are going to sanction the hell out of Nicaragua because they don't like the guy who's in charge. And once it gets impoverished, and then they're going to say, you know, it's kind of strange, but we've got 1 million Nicaraguans at the border. How'd that happen? It's like what we're talking about. If you leave Nicaragua alone, it's fine. I will guarantee you, if this bill passes within 1 to 2 years, that border is going to be loaded with Nicaraguans. Because what are people going to do when their economy crashes, etc.? Oh, by the way, the Biden administration is about to reinstitute sanctions on Venezuela.
Oh, you know that? Really? Great! Wow.
Venezuela, and the reason is, listen to this. One of the people that wants to run for president in Venezuela, she worked with Juan Guaido. She was a person who tried to convince the United States to attack Venezuela. She was the one who promoted sanctions on Venezuela. She was the one who helped the United States steal Venezuela's major company, which was the Citgo oil company, right? And so the Venezuelan Supreme Court said, you can't run. Basically, because you have made an attempt to overthrow the government of this country through violent means, you can't run. The United States then said, you got to let her run. They said, no, our Supreme Court said no for obvious reasons. You wouldn't let her run in your country. So no, right? So the U.S. said, well, if you don't let her run, then we're going to reinstitute the sanctions against you. Wow. Let me tell you something. Do you think any Venezuelans are going to start showing up at the border? So these same people who are like, we've got to stop immigration. We got Marco Rubio, immigration. They're going to reinstitute sanctions against Venezuela, a country of 30 million people, 30 million. And they're going to have all these dramatic draconian sanctions against Nicaragua. They got about 6 million. That's 36 million people. Let's just say that 10% of them show up at the border. You know what I'm saying? So it's what you were talking about. You can't talk about immigration, you know what I mean, without talking about, you know, what caused it. And you got to stop doing what's caused it. If a guy says, you know, I drink a lot. I've lost my family. I've lost my job. I've had 5 DWI, you know what I mean? And all these problems. I wish these bad things wouldn't happen to me. You got to talk about the alcohol. You know, you got to talk about the addiction that you have if you want to stop that. You can't stop them without addressing the addiction. The U.S. has an addiction to war, an addiction to overthrowing other countries and destabilizing other countries. And now the results of that addiction are showing up at our border. And what I just showed you, for all the talk that they talk about the border, they're asking for another couple million people at the border. No question about that.
Yeah, you know, well, I'll take this opportunity here to say, look, you know, what's required right now is for people to elect themselves to decide to stand up and do what I've done. I don't know if you've been seeing, Garland, but like almost every day there's like an intervention going public and viral. Like Biden, every appearance he has gets interrupted. Kamala Harris, every appearance that she has gets interrupted. I've had nothing to do with those in the sense that I didn't tell people go do it. People have just been doing this. There's been one happening every day, pretty much, and we need to accelerate that too. And that's kind of what I hope my campaign can inspire people to do. You know, I don't like the idea of prostituting myself, you know, saying like, oh, you should vote for me because I'm sexier than Richie Torres. People should vote for me because I'm fucking sane and I'm a human being compared to Richie Torres, who is just a robot. And that's the only pitch I'll ever make for myself like that. No, I think, and should I win, on the off chance that I win, we are just going to burn the duopoly to the ground. I'm going to figure out a way to replace everyone else. All 434 people have got to go. Other, you know, because I'd be the one for the 35, and that's really ultimately what needs to happen. Now, does that mean I actually need to win for that to happen? No, not at all. I think it requires people to stand up right now and say, you know what, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I think American people have a dignity that is being stolen from them right now, and they need to decide whether they're going to take that back or not. Because we can complain all we want, we can argue about all we want. What are people prepared to do? And, you know, AOC recently, she said this thing. She said this stupid thing. She said, I don't endorse Joe Biden's genocide Gaza policy, but we should still vote for him anyway because, you know, electoral politics is not about, you know, getting everything you want or embodying, you know, everything you want. That's what we got with Trump. I said, you know what, if you genuinely believe that, if you genuinely believe there's no candidate that represents what you want right now, then you should take, AOC should have said, I don't like any of the candidates. I only trust myself. I'm going to run for president. You know why? Because that's her electing herself. And she's saying, I'm not going to win. I don't know if I'm going to win. Probably not. But I would rather, and this is true for me, I don't want to go to the ballot box in November and see Richie Torres' name unopposed. I would want it myself and give people in my constituency the opportunity to not vote for some genocide. Maybe I should be careful with those words because of our platform. Somebody who denies the realities of what is happening in Gaza. You know, I want to give my constituency the option to pick somebody who, you know, is not going to support what's happening in Gaza at all.
So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I tell you, I only wish, you know, being a little old schmuck, regular old working class guy, I got to work for a living. If I didn't have to work for a living, believe it or not, I'd run for president just for the hell of it. I would absolutely run for president if I could afford to, if I didn't have to, you know, pay a mortgage and bills and stuff like that.
You got to get you Trump money.
Yeah, how about that? Okay, so let's go. Ready? Next word, Trump.
Ooh, there was a documentary that just released about me. Actually, it's on Due Dissidence. People can watch it on Due Dissidence, the YouTube channel right now, where I actually go through this. I was a Bernie bro in 2016, and I want to preface this by saying I was 18 years old. So
I was too in 2016. I was a big Bernie bro in 2016. I thought it was something different. You know what I mean? It made sense at that point in our development. But continue.
Yeah, can you actually, like, I've been trying to understand that phenomenon that people felt. You know, a lot of people who saw the intervention I did on AOC, Brianna Joy Gray, Glenn Greenwald, Katie Halper, this one and that one, all of them said the same thing. I believed in Bernie too. Could you actually tell me, like, from your perspective, why you think Bernie Sanders was such a big appeal in 2016?
Yes, because we had only heard stuff that's approved by the system. That's all we would hear. You know, we would get a couple of illusions and, you know, what appeared to be various options, but in reality, it wasn't. They wasn't. The best we would get was Obama came along and buffaloed us with words like hope and change. And we thought, we never stopped to ask him what the change was going to be or what we were hoping for or what he was going to actually do. So he used these wonderful spirited words, undefined, and everybody thought, well, that's great. Oh boy, I want change. I want something different. We didn't get it. Along comes Bernie, and he was saying things. But if you look back at the things that Bernie said, for the people, those of us who hadn't really looked into his history, didn't understand how inured he was to the actual system and how much a part of the system that he was. He said things that made damn sense and that gave the appearance of being something different. In hindsight, he was kind of playing his role in the system, as far as I'm concerned. He was very much playing his role. And then once they cheated him, then he said, all right, I'm going on the stump for Hillary. So he didn't really believe in what he said, but it made sense because he was saying something different in the same way that Trump was saying something different. And the fact of the matter is this: in 2016, if this were a democracy, it would have been Bernie versus Trump, because both of them were saying things that were different. Right? Whether or not they did anything or different is another question. But the system couldn't even allow Bernie, who says something different, to be in. Right? But now we've since seen what Bernie is. But so, yeah, it made sense where we were politically at that time to support, for people to on the left to support, or, you know, Bernie, or on the right to support Trump. To me, it made sense. Now we know more than we know. In hindsight, okay, yeah, things are different.
So so I was asked about this in this documentary, and I was a Bernie bro. I was still a high school senior at the time, and like I remember the memes, I remember Bernie fever. So I fell into it, and well, it's what you said, right? Then he lost the nomination and was cheated out of the nomination, as we found out from the WikiLeaks emails, right? So the DNC conspired to make sure that Bernie couldn't win, and then he goes and endorses Hillary. And for me at the time, I thought, okay, well, I'm fed up with establishment politics. Nothing is working. It doesn't make sense to me. There's this outsider named Trump. The media doesn't like him. Hillary doesn't like him. I am afraid to death of Hillary Clinton. Maybe this could be a net positive. So that was my 18-year-old mind thinking, like, okay, well, maybe we can get something different. Now, well, it wasn't all that different. And, I don't necessarily regret my vote because, hey, the stuff with Ukraine would have happened 4 years earlier, in my opinion.
Exactly. I mean, we might not be here if Hillary was.
Right. Hillary Clinton was saying we need to treat the Russian hacking as like an act of war, and that she was ready to, go to war with Russia over this. So, in the beginning of Trump's presidency, I think I was a little optimistic because he went to China, he went to Russia. And I still remember that trip he took to China, and he met with Xi Jinping, and he brought his granddaughter, and his granddaughter started speaking in Chinese to Xi Jinping. And there was like this like goodwill, like, hey, maybe we might avoid World War III here, and maybe things might just be fucked up domestically. That's okay. I can live not living in a nuclear, mushroom cloud. But no, then he hired the swamp. He had people like Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, Bill Barr, and the others, and that was his downfall. That and I mean, he was always that, and now he's saying, well, I probably will continue to fund NATO. I was the biggest funder of NATO. I brought all the money to NATO. That's what he's saying now. So.
And this is the one that kills me. Now Trump says, yeah, if you bring me in, I'll put a 60% tariff on things coming from China. Last time I checked, pretty much every damn thing on Amazon. He literally said that 60% tariff. Everything on Amazon, everything in Walmart. So now it's going to this country. What exactly. Is that going to do? It's going to kill Trump's saying, I'm going, because a tariff is basically a tax. So he's and like everything that we buy every day is from China. You got a freaking grill that's stamped made in China on it, right? So what Trump is saying, bring me in and I will jack the price of everything up 60% just to piss China off some kind of way. Gee, thanks. You're really getting China, making me pay 60% more for it. So again, we get the same bull crap.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. No. So now I'm like, forget the Democrats, forget the Republicans. I don't have any presidential candidate I like right now. None of them are qualified, in my opinion. And like you said, Garland, if I was 35, I would vote for myself. If Diane Sayre was running for president, I would vote for her. So that's my opinion on Trump.
Where are we? There we go. Here we go. Let me show you right here. You're gonna love this. And he's been talking about it a lot. Oops. Here we go. How brilliant is this? Boom. Trump floats more than 60% tariffs on Chinese imports. Trump confirmed that he would impose tariffs of 60% or higher on Chinese goods were he to win a second term in office. That means a 60% tax increase because the tariff is a tax on us. China doesn't pay it when it hits our shores. We pay it. They don't pay it. They don't get anything from it. Now, where does that 60% tariff goes? Straight to the federal government. It is a tax. So now, if I want something off of Amazon, 60% more, bro. If I want to buy whatever, hey, I think I'll get a new computer screen, 60% more. Oh, that's a nice little gadget there. Well, how about we'll add 60% more now? How wonderful is that? So again, I don't think the people in our government will be angry if Trump's giving them 60% more on everything frickin' comes from China so they can use that to buy more warships with. Let me ask you about this. Speaking of which, Pentagon budget. Talk to me.
We spend almost $1 trillion in defense. $27 million is the cost of a single drone. What the fuck could the Bronx do with $27 million extra dollars? Right? I mean, one of the more famous interventions I've done is on Jamal Bowman. This was about a few weeks before I confronted AOC. And he was over there saying, we got to advance the black cause. We got to advance the black agenda. And so I stood up and I said, you say you want to advance the black cause, but you are funding the same, you know, those people, right? The ones who like
the guys.
Guys. You are funding the Azov people, right, who have the black sun symbol, the same symbol that the Buffalo shooter used that killed all those people in that supermarket, right? So, and you remember the Buffalo shooting, right, that happened here in New York, right? So there's this guy who's shooting people, who's a a Sieg Heil guy, and then we're saying we're gonna denounce that, but we're gonna give those same kind of people tons of money over there. And so in that intervention, as I'm being dragged out, I say, where's the $50 billion for the Bronx, right? Because at that time, that's how much money was sent to Ukraine, $50 billion. And so I was like, well, where's that for the Bronx? You know, and what could the Bronx do with $50 billion? How many schools, hospitals, how many different infrastructure programs could we have? Could we have high-speed rail in the country with $50 billion? Could we at least get, the Northeast corridor up and down with $50 billion? What could we do with the Pentagon budget? I tell me, well, you can't just throw money at these national. Really? We spend dollars in banks. What does that do for the economy? Nothing. That's absolutely nothing. This is just play money. This is monopoly money. It doesn't mean anything. So, Pentagon budget should be drastically reduced down, and you should probably dismantle the NSA, the CIA. You could make an argument for the FBI. Because, yeah, of course. Well, I know, but, or maybe you can retool the intelligence agencies. I don't know. But
good luck with that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The intelligence agencies are not working on behalf of the people of the United States. They are not adhering to democratic principles. They are not adhering to the Constitution. Let me ask you this, okay? Your thoughts on all the charges on Trump. I want to know what you think. They've charged Trump 96 charges.
It's all
9 yards. What do you think on that?
It's all trumped up. I hate to say it like that, but they are going after him. It is unjust what they are doing to him. These things are not incongruent in my mind that he would be a terrible president. And also he is being unjustly persecuted. They are afraid of him because he doesn't go along 100% with what the establishment wants, and all of these attempts to try and get him off the ballot, the so-called country with democracy, is trying to silence their political opponent. What is this? This is what people term banana republics, right? Yeah, well, you live in one. You live in something far worse than Germany in the 1930s, okay? That is what we live in. And if anybody has any kind of illusions that you are not in that, this is a wake-up call. You are living under fascism right now. You are living in an authoritarian government right now. And just because you have the ability to go watch porn on your computer does not mean you are free. Okay, that does not mean you are free. Okay, you are right now under oppressive control, and you have to break out of it. This is me making a plea. Get out of the matrix. Take the red pill. Get out.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. We've been a little bit over an hour, but let me ask you this, people. Let me see. Let me make sure everybody sees where they can.
Yeah. VoteVega.nyc.
That's
For your
it.
donations.
VoteVega.nyc. That's Jose Vega. He's running for Congress. Uh,
My opponent has a treasure chest of like $7 million, I think, over his last two campaigns. Yeah. So that's, the website will be revamped so that it includes more of
It's a
my
great
policies.
website, man. It's great. You got a cat and everything.
Ozymandias.
Come on, dude. Yeah. That's an awesome cat. What's the cat's name?
Ozymandias.
Oh, man. Ozymandias. That's a heck of a name. That's a cat. I think personally that the cat, if you win, that cat has to be like a co-member of Congress with you. As far as I can see, he's got to help work to make the decisions. He's got to be a part of your team. Possibly, I'm thinking, maybe we're looking at your chief of staff.
Chief of staff. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if Caligula could do it, and if Caligula can make a senator, I can make this man a congressman. So,
There we go. And here's the big part. You see that donate button, everybody. Power, not force. I love that. I've also often heard power is only power until you use it. Then it becomes force. Power is potential. Power is when people believe you have the potential to do things. And then force is when you use it. And then all the power. Once you use it, it's all gone. Once you use force, once you resort to force, you have no power anymore. So at any rate, so that's votevega.nyc. And you're going to get in Congress and, work on some things that definitely need to be worked on. I see. Oh, last but censorship.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on censorship? That people like me who are thrown off of X and, every time I turn around, we're being told that somebody who doesn't agree with the government or the official CIA position is spreading misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Anytime they can put like a prefix to the word information, they stick it in there and they, demonetize somebody or throw them off wherever, or put something in front of what they said. When it's true, like somebody says something that's 100% true and they'll put something about this needs context, whatever. I don't even know what that means. Your thought on the whole disinformation, misinformation. Remember Scary Poppins, the woman that was singing the Mary Poppins thing? Misinformation. That's the last subject.
One of the things that I really respected Diane Sayre's campaign for was that she was publishing newspapers, and we were going out in the street and handing them out, as a way to get real information out there, news that, people like the Gray Zone talk about, or on EIR.news, right? Like real honest news and information. We were just handing it out there. That's what we were doing, right? To as a way to stop the censorship. There does maybe need to be some kind of like retooling of the Constitution or of the First Amendment that, makes it so that social media platforms just can't censor you. I mean, I understand the need for moderation, of course, if there's illegal things happening. I mean, we have laws in place for this already, right? Of course you can't go on social media and say, you're going to go kill people or something. Yeah, that's illegal. Certainly. And that's already illegal, whether you do that online or offline, right? So there are laws already, and the social media, it's not moderation. It's we want to control the narrative, and we need to break out of the narrative. That's what our job is to do. So yeah,
all right. That's Jose Vega. And there we go. Put him in Congress. There's the chief of staff right there. There's right there. There's a guy that can really make this operation happen. He's got a look on his face that says, I'm going to make a change. All right. All right. Thanks a lot, Jose. All right, everybody. That's Jose Vega. Thanks a lot. Go to his website. That's votevega.nyc. He's running against Richie Torres. Boo, Richie Torres. Yay, Jose Vega. And of course, if you follow me, you can see I'm on Telegram and Patreon and all that kind of stuff. And you can go over to my Rockfin channel. Make sure you become a member of my Rockfin and my Rumble channel, because on any given day they may just decide that people like Jose and I are running our mouths a little too much on YouTube, and they may want to bring that to a screeching halt. So make sure you follow all of us on the alternative media platforms, not just the Google-owned YouTube and stuff like that. All right, vote Vega.nyc. Thanks a lot. You get the last word. Any last word you have to say for our listeners?
You know, I can't promise a win. I can't promise a vote, but I think now's the time for people to elect themselves, to stand up for the truth, keep the Socratic tension going, keep the interventions going, keep the protests going, keep the pressure up, and interrupt Biden, Harris, and any other congressman. Whenever you see them, interrupt them, bother them. If they're eating dinner, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but where's the ceasefire pass? Where's the ceasefire resolution? Keep doing that. So, you know, vote Vega.nyc.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's Jose Vega. Everyone, make sure you share this on all your social media platforms. As you know, I'm not on X, so really piss him off on X. Share it, share it, share it. And by the way, do like hashtag Jose Vega, hashtag vote Vega, all that kind of stuff. Make sure and share his website on there. If you got a few pennies, whatever you got, every little bit, if it's $5, $10, $20 that you can donate to Jose Vega for Congress, let's give these people hell, and let's get some people like Jose who are making some sense in Congress. Peace. We're out.